Hello friends, and welcome to the channel. As you can see, trying a slightly different format from the videos that I've been typically uploading, so we'll see how this goes. But today, I really wanted to talk to you about a dive watch that is truly a sleeper in my opinion. It's one that I haven't really seen a lot of reviews or discussions about online, and in fact, when I purchased this watch, I barely knew anything about it. So you may well ask, well, why the hell did I buy it? And more importantly, is it any good? So today I'm really going to be telling you how I ended up choosing this watch and it being added to my growing collection of watches, and yeah, just my general thoughts and opinions on it. So let's jump into it. Alright, let me explain, and then I promise I will get back to the watch and this will all start to make a bit more sense. So I recently, about a year ago, relocated from South Africa to Canada. You know, Canada, the land of snow, ice, maple syrup, raccoons, hockey, Tim Hortons, I could go on. Anyway, that move really got me thinking. A watch is something to me that commemorates a certain time in your life. So with that in mind, I thought I really need to find a Canadian watch. So my hunt began. I really wanted to find a watch that felt Canadian, something that would remind me of this new chapter in my life every time I glanced down at my wrist. And that's where I discovered the Microbrand Momentum. But enough of that for now. We'll come back to this later. Let's look at the watch. Let's start with the basics, the design and build quality. So Momentum positioned this watch on their website as one for those who prefer an understated design in a more traditional mid-size case, big performance for a smaller wrist. And I would tend to agree, this watch is actually pretty small for a diver in my opinion. It has a 38mm case, which is crafted from solid 316L stainless steel, providing you some pretty exceptional toughness while really maintaining that sort of lightweight feel. So really overall, this is a much smaller wear than some of its other diver counterparts, I would say. Now, I will admit, even though I fully knew the size before I purchased this watch, in my head, I really thought it was going to be a bit bigger until I got it in hand, at which point I kind of felt a bit like, it's a little bit smaller than I would have traditionally liked, but I've actually come to realize this watch has a bit of a superpower. So being a 38mm, if you were to compare it to sort of a more traditionally sized 41mm diver, such as this Citizen Automatic, you can actually see it's not that much smaller, or it doesn't appear to be that much smaller. And I think it's largely due to sort of the larger geared bezel. It kind of gives it a larger footprint while still actually being relatively small. So it's a bit of a superpower. It makes it a very sort of super wearable and more stealthy kind of wear. Which is, a little thing that I've really come to love about this little Momentum. As you've no doubt noticed by now, this watch features a high contrast black and white dial with some really bold markers that give it some excellent legibility. You actually have two options with this watch. You have a white on black version, like the one you see here, or a black on white version. So it's kind of a zebra with white stripes or black stripes situation. Personally, I went with the black dial and white numbers with the sort of red accents. I just found it to be a bit more to my liking and to my tastes. Now, let's talk about some of the functionality of this M-Ocean. I also hope that I wasn't the only person that missed that. M-Ocean motion. It was a little slow on the uptake there, I must admit. Anyway, according to Momentum, this is a pretty serious little dive tool. However, me not being a diver or someone who's ever done any diving, I'll definitely have to take their word for that. You've got the rotating bezel, which goes without saying is something I think most would expect from an analog dive watch. I find that the geared bezel is pretty easy to grip and turn, and it's got a bit of a timid or subtle click, for the lack of a better word. It's definitely quieter than some other divers, but still really enjoyable to twist. Here's a little sample for you. So as you can hear and see, very sort of tactile click, zero backplay. It's a pretty good bezel in my opinion. This watch offers solid water resistance up to 200 meters to be exact, Now, not that I would ever push it to its limits, but the build quality definitely gives me plenty of confidence. I have no fear of water with this watch, especially with the screw down crown as a sort of extra layer of security. Since we're on the topic of the crown though, I do have one small gripe. As a pretty big guy without dainty fingers, I find that the signed crown is a little bit on the small side, so it can really be quite tricky to grip, especially when it's fully screwed down. That being said, since it is a quartz movement, you're not really going to be adjusting it all that often, so I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker, it's just something to really keep in mind. Speaking of the movement, this watch is powered by a Japanese quartz Epson VX32G, which boasts an accuracy of about plus minus 20 seconds per month and a claimed 5-year battery life. Honestly, there's not much else to say here. It does exactly what it's supposed to. I've had no complaints or issues to date. Ticks along just fine as a quartz watch should. The date rolls over without a hitch. It also happens to hack for you accuracy junkies out there. All in all, pretty accurate and reliable movement, I'd say. The date window is another area I really enjoyed on this watch. Instead of the usual single date display, this watch has a really unique 3-date window with the little red arrow that indicates today's date. It's really a cool little quirk that adds a bit of character and sets this watch apart, in my opinion. As for the hands, I also love the pop of red on the seconds hand. It really complements the black and white dial perfectly, in my opinion. The red accents throughout the design, they just tie everything together for me. When talking about the design of this watch, one slight letdown for me is the watch's performance at night. In my experience, the lume is pretty weak. If you give it a good blast of UV light, it glows nicely at first, but really doesn't hold its brightness for long. Wearing it day to day, I've also noticed that the lume doesn't really seem to charge as well as other watches I've owned. Maybe I just need some more sunlight in my life, who knows, but for a dive watch, I expected a bit better for the lume. Now, back to my story from a little bit earlier. I came across Momentum watches via a pretty well-placed Instagram ad. I had no doubt been doing a ton of research and trying to find my Canadian Grail watch that I wanted to find to commemorate this move that I had done. So I inevitably had entered their targets. But yeah, I ended up on their website, did a little bit of looking around. I think the first watch that I came across was their Quartz 30, which you may not know, and I didn't at the time, has a little bit of a cult following, thanks to Magnum PI, whose main character wore this watch throughout a number of the seasons of the show. I have to admit, this is a little bit lost on me because Magnum PI was somewhat before my time, so I never really got the reference. But as I browsed their collection and stumbled across this little guy, something about it really stood out to me compared to the rest of the offerings. The watch had a lot of the design cues that I really typically love in a watch. The specs were what I was after. The brand was one that I felt that I could really align myself to. So when I saw this watch, in my head the decision was basically already made. Of course, it didn't hurt that on top of this, they were also running a pretty compelling early Black Friday deal at the time, which pretty much helped seal the deal, or sealed the fate of my credit card, if you will. One other thing I discovered when purchasing this watch directly from Momentum is that they do offer some customization options on their website. It's nothing too crazy, but you do get some choices like selecting between a mineral glass or a sapphire crystal. Aside from the price, I'm not too sure why you would select mineral glass over sapphire crystal. I have read some arguments that mineral glass is a little bit more resistant to shattering upon hard impact in comparison to, say, sapphire crystal. However, in my opinion, with your sort of daily rough wear of your watch, you're far more likely to scratch the glass than you are to have like a hard impact on it. So for me, I'm always going to be selecting the sapphire crystal. At the time of ordering, they also offered some different bezel insert options, though I don't see that on the website anymore. Then finally, you get a choice between selecting the stainless steel bracelet or some rubber strap options. As you can see, I went with the natural rubber strap, specifically the long variation, since I typically have a relatively large wrist. In hindsight, I probably should have gone with the regular size, as I find myself using the tighter holes on the longer strap since I'm not wearing a wetsuit. But then again, that's the gamble. You never really know when you purchase online. Who knows, maybe the regular size would have been too small. Either way, I think the main thing is that it fits and it's comfortable to wear, and there isn't a really long, annoying overhang on the other side. But funny enough, one of the first things that really struck me about this strap was the subtle vanilla scent. I've never come across that with any other watch strap before. I'm sure some other brands do this, but it was a nice little touch that made for a great unboxing experience. It's kind of like that new car smell, but for watch straps. Even with sort of regular wear and it getting wet, the scent is still there today. Overall, it's a comfortable and well-made dive strap with some solid feeling rubber keepers and a sturdy buckle. I've really had no desire to swap it out, and I'm honestly pretty glad I chose this over the bracelet. In my opinion, it just feels more comfortable, and personally, I really just prefer the look the rubber strap has. Going back to the beginning of this video to answer the question I had, do I think this watch is worth it? Now, after a while of wearing this Momentum watch, if I had to sum things up into a single sentence, I would say it is a small but mighty diver at this price point. More than anything for me though, without getting too cliche now, what I really love about this watch is what it means to me personally. It's not just a well-made, budget-friendly diver to me. It's a bit more of a memento to this new chapter in my life in Canada. It's a watch in my collection that for me personally really tells a story. Momentum may not be the most talked about microbrand out there, but in my opinion, they're making some very cool watches at very reasonable prices. And if you haven't checked them out, I would definitely encourage you to go and take a look at what they have on offer. Thanks for watching, friends. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Did you enjoy this new format of video? Do you own a Momentum watch? I would love to hear your thoughts. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. May the hours and days ahead be kind.